everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Student Fyre podcast, live from the Speak Fyre studio. My name is Bobby Berg. I'm a motivational speaker for schools, and I'm here to help you live your best life today.
Yo, it's your boy, your brother, your friend, once again in the building. And we're back for another segment of the Young Fyre podcast, powered by Speak Fyre. Yo, you already know this has been a very interesting time to try to get this loaded, but me and my boy Bobby B over at Student Fyre, we got it locked and loaded and we ready. Bobby, you there, bro?
Oh man, you know it. Absolutely.
Nice. So as you all know, we have kind of cross-production, cross-produced this segment about fatherlessness, because a few weeks back we both had these segments of fatherlessness dealing with that issue, and unbeknownst to us, we actually were on the same page with it. So he had me on Student Fyre, having me answer some questions, and now we're going to do likewise. And now I'm going to put Bobby in the proverbial hot seat, and we're going to talk about fatherlessness, and get the insight from his standpoint, man. And wow, Bobby. So if you guys don't know, as if you don't know, Bobby B is the host of Student Fyre channel under Speak Fyre. And yes, he goes hard, he goes in, man. And he's getting the students ready for another new academic year. So Bobby, for those who don't know you over here on Young Fyre, tell us a little bit about yourself, bro.
Absolutely. So first off, hello everyone that's listening that hasn't met me. My name's Bobby Berg. I am a motivational speaker for high school and middle school athletes. I'm currently living up in Anchorage, Alaska. I'm a musician in the United States Army, and truthfully, I'm on a mission this year to impact as many student lives as possible. I have a goal set of impacting 1,000 students by the end of 2019, and you know what? It's just, this has been such a phenomenal year, and I'm so pumped to be given this opportunity to change as many lives as I can on a daily basis.
Right. That's where we are, baby. So you already know, man, you and I, we share eerily similar upbringings when it comes to our dealings with fatherlessness. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into the first question, man. And for those who may not understand or know the little bit of a backstory of you, when dealing with fatherlessness, tell us a little bit about that. What happened?
So my dad was never in my life. As I was growing up, it wasn't something that my family really talked about often. And I was raised by my two grandparents. And my grandmother never really brought up my dad until I started asking when I got to be about 5 or 6 or 7 years old, somewhere in that ballpark. I would always ask him, so where was my dad? And my mom would never tell me. And then as I got older, she started to let little pieces of information out. And over years of putting this puzzle piece together, I found out that my dad and my mom got into a huge fight before I was born. Long story short, there was a lot of arguing, a lot of yelling, and he wound up beating my mom up pretty hard and kicking her in the stomach multiple times before just rushing out the door. And that was it. I found out later, I don't remember this. Well, there's very small pieces that I do remember, but it's not much. I guess that after I was born, he started to call and want to talk to me and just kind of get to know me a little bit. And honestly, the only hard memory that I really have is one year he called around, it was right around Halloween, and he said, hey, what do you want to be for Halloween this year? And for anybody that knows me, naturally, I said Batman, because Batman's just my absolute favorite hero. In any mythos, any pop culture, anything, he is the ideal. And I got so excited. He said he was going to send me the costume in the mail. And I guess that I had waited outside, well, not necessarily always outside, but I had waited for that costume every single day. I knew that the mailman came at roughly the same time. So every time I knew it was around that time, I would run outside and wait for him, thinking it was going to come in a package. And it never came. I waited and I waited and I waited, and it never came. And my mom told me, she's like, it just broke my heart because you were so excited. You were so ready for this, and it just wasn't there. And she goes, that's exactly what it felt like when he and I got in that tiff. and he just never came back. You know, he said, oh, I'm coming back, and never did. And now not only did he do it to us once, this was now the second time. And I was like, oh my gosh. So,
Wow.
yeah. So sorry about that long tangent there, but
No.
that was me growing up. That's how my early life with my father started, was just constant letdown. And I'm sorry if I start laughing at some of these points. For me, it doesn't seem like a big deal because I lived it. I'm like, all right, that just happened.
Right.
You know, for a lot of the listeners, it's not that I'm thinking that these situations are necessarily the most hysterical thing, but looking back, I just have to chuckle because I'm like, how do you do that to someone else? You know what I mean? It doesn't. I don't understand how someone can do that. But yeah, that's a little bit of the backstory.
Wow. And so which leads us into our first question. You say you were, once your dad walked away, you were raised by your grandfather. So do you feel that your grandfather successfully filled that father figure role for you growing up?
Honestly, yeah. So my grandfather passed away when I was in 4th grade. He was a really small guy. He was probably no more than 5'5", maybe 5'6". Probably didn't weigh any more than 140 pounds soaking wet, fully clothed. And he wasn't very, how to put it, when my grandmother and my grandfather took me in, they were in their older age. He was in his 70s at that point, and they'd already had 4 kids. So I remember a big fight that they had is if they wanted to take me in, not because they didn't love me, but he'd always said, he was like, I'm too old for this. If this kid was older, maybe, but he's 5 and I'm old. I've lived my life with 4 kids. I don't know that I can handle a 4th. Well, Lo and behold, my grandmother was from Germany, and she's a stubborn old German woman. She, you know, when she said this is what's happening, that was what's happening. What didn't matter if you could talk your way out of it. She'd made her decision. So they took me in, and he wasn't sure at first. And lo and behold, a couple months later, he and I are like 2 peas in a pod. He couldn't separate us. We'd always laugh together. He was always teaching me things, no matter what point of my life I was in or no matter what had happened. He was always finding these sly ways to teach me how to be the ideal person. And when it comes to, you know, every guy, no. Every person has what they view their ideal human being as being. And, you know, he was always there for the family. He always wanted to make people laugh. And, you know, he was the guy that you just wanted to be around. Now, granted, I guess that earlier on in his early years, he drank a lot and he was not a fun person to be around at all. But as he grew older, you know, he mellowed out a lot. He stopped drinking as much. And, you know, he filled that void like no one could. I mean, I honestly couldn't have asked for a better person.
Wow, nice. And that's one of the things that, you know, like how we share that in common, that someone stepped in when our fathers walked out, someone stepped in, you know. And with that, like, how did you come to terms with your father walking away from you? Like, is there a desire to want to meet him if he's still alive and out there, to, you know, to find that solace, you know, that peace about it?
Yeah, for sure. So of course I wasn't born when my dad walked out, so it didn't really affect me. For me, I remember early on, I realized that it was just my mom, my great grandmother, and I. That was it. And truthfully, I didn't really know any better. I mean, I'd always seen kids at school with, you know, a mom and a dad walk in, and I was like, all right, whatever, cool. But, you know, I have my family. You remember when we were kids, you're so blissfully ignorant to what horrors the world has. You don't notice it. And I didn't care. Right. I was like, I've got someone that loves me. I'm good. This is it. Life is great. You know, and even at that time when my mom was dealing with a drug problem, I wouldn't be at a single school for any longer than 3 months at a time. And to me, I didn't care. I was like, all right, so I get to meet new people. I get to go do this. I'm still with my family. My mom loves me. It's great. But as I got older, and especially when I became a teenager and I got the whole story of my father walking out and him not being there in my life and this and that, I got really resentful. So only my training partners know this because, for mixed martial arts, you have to be aggressive and violent when you need to be for your safety, not just to prove that you're an alpha male, which isn't really a thing. You just have to do it because if you're not focused, you're going to get hurt, or you could. And what I didn't realize is when I started getting into combat sports, being, wrestling, mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, I had this anger boil up out of my chest that I had never noticed until that moment. And I was like, oh, hey, this is why you get upset all the time. And this is where all that anger's been sitting. All of those times that, someone would bring up your dad and you just brush it off. Or the kids at school would make a joke about, oh, ha, is your uncle going to come in because your dad doesn't want you? Ha, ha, ha. And I would just brush it off and, say it's not a big deal, even though deep down it really hurt. This is where all that frustration came out. So it was cool because I found a really healthy outlet because my coaches were wonderful men and they taught me, they're like, listen, you're allowed to feel this way, man. It's cool. Let it out. And it was a really good outlet. But so later on, let's flash back like 3 years, 4 years even. I'm graduating college and I don't know what to do because I promised my grandmother. She was one of the biggest influences on my life when it comes to music. She got me into it. She paid for my lessons. She was always my biggest fan when it came to me being a musician. And I told her, 1 year in high school, the Marine Corps band had come and I got to meet up with the clarinet section and it was just a really cool experience. And I said, you know what? I'm going to at least audition for one of these groups because these guys are what it looks like to just be rocking. So my grandmother is suffering from stage 4 cancer and she doesn't have much time left. And the doctor was straight up with me. He's like, listen, man, she doesn't have a lot of time left with this. And you'd better, if there's anything you want to do or anything you want to say, you'd better get it out soon. And I'd always told her since that moment, I said, I'm going to audition for a military ensemble. So I did. And lo and behold, the Army called and they're like, listen, if you want it, you got it. And I said, cool. Well, I find out that my dad was in both the Marine Corps and the Army. So, yeah, of course, it's a day of social media. So finding someone has literally never been easier. And even for those people that say, oh, I don't use social media, you have a digital footprint somewhere. I promise you do.
Right.
And I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and look and let's see if he's out there. So I did a quick Facebook search and boom, there he is. And because at first I was like, I don't believe that wasn't that easy. There's no way. And then I looked at this guy's face and I'm going, those are my cheeks. That's my forehead. That's my facial structure. Oh my gosh, that's my dad.
Wow.
Right?
So you actively pursue you know what, I'm gonna go and do a go see and see if he's out there.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
Because I said, what's literally the worst thing that could happen here is I find out he's dead and I didn't know. Okay, cool, tough. But he was alive, and the craziest thing, he was in the city next door.
Wow.
He was literally no more than 20 minutes away from me. And I'm going, wait a second.
Whoa.
What?
Right. Whoa.
Like a crazy little search on Facebook brings up all of this information. And I needed it because they needed to find out if he was where he lived for some preliminary paperwork. And I hopped on and I said, hey man, my name's Bobby, blah, blah, blah. Here, I need this information. And within 24 hours, I had it.
Wow.
Which brings me up to something that I just remembered. I actually, prior to this, checked out to see if if he existed or whatnot. And it was on Father's Day, and I was in college. And Father's Day has always been rough for me because as we've talked, and for everyone that's heard both sections of our podcast, I hate Father's Day because it brings up a lot of just turmoil in my life that I don't like to relive every once a year. But I'd sent him a message one year and I said, hey, it's me. I don't know if this is your account or whatnot, but happy Father's Day. Let's connect.
Oh, so
Yeah.
hold on. So with that, I hate to leave the listening audience on a cliffhanger, but we will continue this session next week with the part 2. I know I know it, I feel it. You need to log back in, check it out for what happened when Bobby reached out on Father's Day, telling his father Happy Father's Day for the first time, right?
Yep.
So, ladies and gentlemen, you already know, next week, tune in for part 2. And you already know, until next time, as we always sign off, Bobby, how you going to do this?
Man, y'all don't want to miss this. Straight up, if you have a couple minutes out of your day, check this out. I'm telling you, you want to be here. You want to check this out. You will thank us later. But that's all we got for you. I hope everyone has a wonderful week. Keep rocking, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace.
And until next time, deuces.
Team, thank you so much again for checking out this week's episode of the Student Fyre and Young Fyre collaboration. Here at Speak Fyre, we love doing stuff like this. This was part 1. Part 2 is going to be coming at you next Monday on both Sean B's Young Fyre and my Student Fyre. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace!
That was another awesome episode of the Student Fyre podcast. Thank y'all for sticking around for this long, but I got a question for you. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? See, when I was trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had a lot of questions, like how do I record an episode? How do I get my show to apps? Like, do I have to do it individually, or can I just have one place that does everything for me? And most importantly, how do I make money from my podcast? Is that even an option? Well, honestly, y'all, your answer is Anchor. Anchor is the one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it is 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors that want to advertise on your podcast. Yes, you. That means you can get paid to make the podcast. You can get paid to podcast the right way. In fact, that's exactly what I'm doing right now by reading this ad. If you want to get in on this, if you want to make your podcast a reality and you want your success and your word to be a thing, man, you already know. Hop over to Anchor and give it a start. You won't regret it. Catch y'all in the next episode. Peace.
I am excited to bring you my new book, Trendsetter, 7 Steps to Radically Stand Out to Be the Best You. This book details my journey of coming to the United States and being excited to embrace the American culture. But unfortunately, my culture was not accepted, and I found myself being bullied as a young girl. And in this process, I decided that I wanted to disconnect from my culture to be more accepted into American culture. And through that process, I got so depressed from trying to fit in that I attempted suicide my freshman year in high school. So this book talks about the journey of what I did to become radically transformed, to be the strong woman I am today. This book is something that's really going to enable the reader to understand and embrace who they are, embrace what makes them special, and become radically transformed. Get your copy today at becomingatrendsetter.com. Again, that is becomingatrendsetter.com, or check it out at my website at aishathomas.org.